we're discussing today, we're continuing the discussion about the difference between Abraham and Aaron. Abraham founded Judaism. He was the first Jew, and God made this covenant with him that all of his children after him would be Jews. And also, he gave him the land of Israel, and all of his children would get the land of Israel. And then afterwards, Abraham made a circumcision. And after he made the circumcision, he gave birth to Yitzchak. And Yitzchak could only be born from a father that was circumcised, which is not the case. Ishmael had been born, 13 years earlier. So Yitzchak was born from what's called a circumcised father, and Yitzchak then he inherited the land of Israel, and he gave it to Yaakov, and then Yaakov gave it to Yaakov's children went down to Egypt, and God took all of Yaakov's children out of Egypt and brought them to the land of Israel. But that's not the main thing of Judaism. That's if you want to call it, the political part of Judaism. The main thing that Abraham got, in the merit of what was Abraham chosen? Why did God choose Abraham? Because Abraham had self-sacrifice. Abraham had self-sacrifice for Judaism. Self-sacrifice doesn't mean he was willing to go into battle and risk his life. Self-sacrifice means that he was trying to convince everyone that there's God. And people didn't want the message. People still don't want the message. He's trying to convince everyone that there's God. And God isn't just a spiritual thing. He's trying to convince everyone that there's a creator, that the world is a creation. That's Abraham's thing. That God and the world are not separate. In other words, the world itself has no real existence without God. There's no existence without God. If the world doesn't exist, God exists. But if God doesn't exist, then the world doesn't exist. So it's not that there's two separate entities. God created the world and that the world floats on its own and that God is on his own. No, people believed that before Abraham. Abraham's thing is that all there is God. But the world is not so real. The world confuses us. So Abraham's thing was that you can, it's possible to ascend, to elevate expand, let's not say elevate, expand your view of life to include the creator. But there's a creator, and the creator creates you. And that eventually you can devote yourself to the creator, see how good the creator is. That's called love. You start to see how good the creator is, then you'll start to love the creator. And that's Abraham's thing. He wanted everyone in the world as much as possible, but for himself first, because he was the breakthrough. He was the the one who started this whole business of being concerned and being able to link up with the creator, with God. So Abraham, that was his thing, was to go up, to leave the falseness of this world and to be aware of the creator of the world, to be aware of the creator of the world. So his thing was be aware of the spiritual and be aware of the creator of the spiritual. That's the main thing. That's Abraham's thing, that there's spiritual worlds and you should be aware of them, but they're only creations, and that you should be aware of the creator. That was Abraham's thing. All the world up to Abraham, they believed in the spiritual. There were all sorts of religions, and they had all sorts of statues and idols and symbols that connected them with the spiritual. That was before Abraham. Abraham came along and let everyone know there's a creator of the spiritual. You can only appreciate him, you can best appreciate him if you appreciate the spiritual worlds also. But the spiritual worlds are not the goal. They are not God. They are a stepping stone, a ladder to be aware that there is a creator. That's Abraham, to elevate, which is not the case with Aaron. Aaron was also a Jew. Aaron also inherited this desire and love of God from Abraham, and this desire to be aware of the Creator all the time, and to love the Creator and to appreciate the Creator. But in addition to that, he had another thing, and that is that he wanted the whole world also to be aware of the Creator. He wanted the Creator to be revealed here. Revealed here. Is that possible? Yes, that's what happened at Mount Sinai. At Mount Sinai, God showed the real truth that God wants to be revealed here. And that's why they made a tabernacle, and that's why they're making sacrifices and things. Even in the most mundane things, you can reveal God in the world. That was Aaron's thing. Aaron's thing was not so much that that the people in the world should get away from their false ideas and cling to the truth, which is that God is the creator of the spiritual, but even more to bring God's revelation here. And it was the big novelty of Abraham was that God creates the spiritual. And the big novelty of Aaron is that God really cares about the physical. He cares about this physical world. And then until the world doesn't know that, the world is a terrible place. It's a terrible place. We're walking around in darkness. That's bitterness. Bitterness. Because we're part of the world. Aaron is also part of the world. So he feels bitterness. He feels bitter. And that's what King David said in Psalm 42. It says, V'haya li dimati lechem. My tears were my food, my bread, day and night. Be'emor alai. When people said to me, Kol hayom, people were saying to me the whole day, Ayeh Elokecha. Where's your God? That's what King David said. Right? Simple meaning. What's simple meaning? King David was a Jew. He believed in God. He had a lot of enemies. Interestingly enough, most of King David's enemies were Jews. They opposed King David right and left, all over, even from his own family. Right? Absalom and Avimelech. No. Adoniyahu, so not Avimelech. Adoniyahu, his sons, they ran against him. So King David had a lot of enemies. He had a lot of enemies all over the place. And also the non-Jews. He had to fight all sorts of battles in order to secure the land of Israel, to secure his kingship, everything like that. So people were saying to him, "Hey, King David, you're supposed to be the representative of God. Where's your God? Where's your God? You're suffering. You're running away. You have to fight for your life all the time, right? You're praying to. Where is your God? We thought you were the God. Your God is the King of the universe. He can do everything. Well, why doesn't he help you?" That's what he says. Nevertheless, King David, of course, he believed in God, but he had a lot of troubles. He had troubles all over the place. And any normal person would say, enough. I mean, who am I fighting for, right? I'm fighting for God, and God is not loyal to me, right? He left me he abandoned me. God abandoned me in the field, in the land of the enemy, right? God abandoned me. So it says, and my tears, King David said, my tears were my food day and night. In other words, I couldn't eat. What did I eat? I ate my tears. Why was I crying? More I like calling on because people were saying to me all day, where's your God? Where's your God, David? You said you represent the King of the universe. He can create everything. He's all powerful. He's almighty. Why are you the underdog? We don't believe in your God. We're on the top. That's the simple meaning. Says the Rebbe, it tells us about how King David suffered and how King so very very how do you say dramatic and how do you say inspiring. Said the Rebbe, that's what King David. What about us? Says by us also is the same thing. We have to be bitter, dimati. Our bitterness should be our bread, day and night. And the Rebbe is going to say even more. By bitterness is then the Torah, which is called bread, that really becomes bread. What are we bitter about? Because kol hayom hayeh Elokecha. You say to yourself all day, where is God? right? Here you go, Rabbi Bolton. You're giving all these classes and you're giving you're translating everything. Good. When you're giving the classes, everything is fine. And you go and you pray, everything is okay. But then, things happen all of a sudden. This thing makes you a little bit mad. This thing makes you a little bit angry. This thing makes you a little bit depressed. And this thing gets you a little bit, you have a desire for things. You look at them, you think, oh, you can't control your thoughts. You can't control this. Well, but I'm okay, 80% of the day, 30% of the day, at least 100%. Some says, no, why am I bitter? Call a yom, the whole entire day. Where is God? Where is your God all day? Why is it you have once in a while you have a little doubt, or you get a little angry, you have a little this, a little this. where's your God all day? Right, the other day, I'll give you an example. That's a terrible example, but it's a true. All of a sudden, I use my car, and we go and do Mivtzoim. It happened to be, this is 2 weeks ago. We're driving to, I took 4 guys. We go to Tel Aviv, in the middle of Tel Aviv, in this big marketplace, in the middle of, the big leftist Tel Aviv. We set up a table over there, and I hand out these candles here, these little boxes. They have candles in them, and I say candles. And I hand out about 200 of these every Friday. And the other guys, they put tefillin on people, and they're wondering. We're doing all sorts of good things, and people really, they like it and have conversations. Jews about having conversations with people. And my car stopped. And there was a pipe that was broken. All the water came out, and it overheated. And I had to let the guys go. I felt so bad. And, they didn't know what to do exactly. And I had to leave half of the stuff that we have in the car, all these candles and things like that. And then finally, amazingly, I got it I had to park it somewhere, and amazingly, nobody stole it. And there's all this troubles. I think, why? I don't understand why is this happening. And then the garage said it'll cost 2,500 shekels, which 2,500 shekels sounds like, $2,500 million or something like that. So it comes out to be, it's like $500-600, something like that. Okay. But 2,500 is a lot of money. I'm thinking to myself, wow, maybe the guy's cheating me, maybe this, maybe that. And suddenly I thought to myself, what are you going crazy, Bolton? First of all, this is just money. Number one, it's just money. It is not your soul. It's not your heart. It's not your blood. It's just money. Money comes from God. Yeah. Comes from God. But $2,000, that's 2,000. It's a lot of money. Maybe he's cheating me. Just listen, leave it alone. Maybe he's not cheating you. What are you getting all excited about? I thought to myself, this is really right. Here I'm giving all these classes about believing in God, and God gives all the money, and all of a sudden I'm all worried about 2011. Hashem made it that the car didn't work. Worse things happen in the world. Something good is going to happen from it. And it ended up something really did good happen from it. I took a cab home, and I got a conversation with the cab driver, and he was like really against Judaism and really against the religious people and against this. And I had a conversation with him, and it doesn't make any difference what the conversation was. In the end, he agreed to put on tefillin. He put on tefillin, and he said, listen, this conversation I had, you really changed my life. And the fact is, all I did was really listen to him. I just listened to him. I said, listen, maybe you're right, but maybe I didn't, give him any sort of, master explanations. And all of a sudden he said, you have enlightened my mind. I just listened. I listened to the guy. I said, listen, I understand what you're saying. I really do understand what you're saying. But there's also good Jews too. There are good Jews. Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess. Finally, in the end, he put on tefillin. And when he was putting on tefillin, as his wife called him up on the phone, he wanted something from the grocery store, and she saw him with tefillin. She couldn't believe it. And she's, and he said hello. And I waved to her, and she waved back to me because I was in the picture also. He says, this guy's putting on tefillin on me. And I waved to her, and she waved back, right? I said, take candles for your wife. She said, oh, okay, I'll do it. I'll put them on. I said, thank you really much. You really changed my life. And believe me, I maybe in the whole conversation, he said like 5,000 words, and I said maybe 20 words. I said, yeah, maybe you're right. So that's the whole point. Where is something good came out of it, right? Good came out of it. But meanwhile, where the rest of the day, where is God? I thought God is creating me. Everything is okay. God puts challenges. He gives you challenges. You have to think positively. Says the Rebbe, by means of the Rebbe, he's saying even deeper. Not just I'm crying because all day, where is my God? right? That's the thing of Aaron. Aaron is bitter because the whole world is not the way God wants it to be. Because there's trouble, there's pain, there's difficulties, there's frustrations in the world, is that makes Aaron bitter. By means of, and so how do you fix it up? By means of learning Torah. By means of learning Torah with the proper attitude, is that fixes up the world. So these boys who sit and learn Torah and they don't want to go to the army, they have a good point. They have a good point. I mean, maybe the way that they express it could be improved, could be improved. And maybe the fact that they don't have enough appreciation of the people who do go to the army, that could certainly be improved. But the fact is they've got a point that learning Torah really fixes up the world. So that's what he says. King David said that by means of the tears and bitterness, that the world is not the way it's supposed to be, zoche lelechem, he merits bread. Not that my tears are bread, but by means of my tears, that the Torah becomes bread. That's the Torah, like it says by the Torah, that it says in the Torah, you should think about the Torah day and night. You should be working at the Torah day and night. Why? The Torah is just a regular book, isn't it? It says it's a book, true, it's a book, but it's not a regular book. It's the book that God created the world from. God is the author of this book, and he's writing it all the time. The Torah is the source of all life, but he put it in a book. There's no doubt about it. He put it in a book, and it's in the library, and it can get worn out. There has to be printing houses that print these books. But nevertheless, the wisdom and the God's will is in each and every word. And not just what God thought a long time ago, but what God is thinking right now to create the world. And when a person is bitter about how the world is, then he realizes the Torah is our only chance. Our Torah is our only pipeline to reveal the truth in the world. Because the bitterness that a person realizes in this time, that his soul draws down godliness all the time. Right? If a person is bitter when he learns the Torah, so he's learning the Torah in order to fix up this terrible, how do you say, torturous world that we're in. And it doesn't have to be this way. Now, again, all of the religions in the world, without exception, say, we got to get out of the world. The world is bad. If you do what we say, you're going to go to heaven. Judaism says you got to fix up the world. You have to bring heaven down here. That's what Judaism says. We have to fix up the world. The world is more important to God than heaven. Maybe heaven is more important to us, but not to God. Heaven is just like we said with Abraham. It's just a ladder. It's a stepping stone to reveal how great God is. But Aaron's thing is to bring this greatness into the world. How do you do that? By Torah. Abraham didn't have the Torah. And it was bitter because he knows that the problems and the difficulties in the world, there's one person causing the whole business, and that's me. I'm not learning the Torah properly, which is not the case if a person just so when a person learns the Torah, he should think, I'm doing it in order to fix the world up. I mean, it doesn't mean that's all you're thinking about. To learn the Torah is very difficult. You have to understand the ideas, and you have to understand that as soon as you learn the Rashi, you realize maybe you didn't understand the idea, and then you understand Rashi, then you learn Tosfot, you realize, that's a good question. I didn't think about that. Wow, how does Rashi answer that? And then you have the other explainers that they explain that, and etc. And you come to understand the depth and the wonder of the Torah. But you don't have to get that deep into the Torah. Even if you just learn the Shulchan Aruch, you learn the most simple things. That's also learning the Torah. But you should be learning the Torah with the attitude that by learning the Torah, I am fixing up the world. Which is not the case if a person just has bitterness only when he's praying. Who shata kosher, because when you pray, that's a proper time to arouse above mochin the gadlus, that you arouse the God's, God's a big awareness of God in the world when you pray. Because you pray, you're making a sort of artificial situation. It's a synagogue, and there's no disturbances over there in the synagogue, and you're thinking about God. And therefore, God is thinking about you. But after a person prays the whole entire day, Eino elo al yedei Torah. Then the only way to draw God in the world is through the Torah and the commandments. But here we're talking about the list of the Torah. This is that's what King David said, Kol hayom, the whole day, Ayeh Elokecha, where is your God? In other words, where all day is your God. Shalom dai, it's not enough just thinking about God when you're praying or when you're learning this Likuti Torah in the morning. It should be your bread day and night, by namely what the Torah. That's the idea of revealing God in the world. And this can only be after you become bitter because you are far from God. So when you're learning Torah, you shouldn't think, wow, I am special, I am different from everybody else. All those other people are running around the streets and they're not learning the Torah. And I am a special, how do you say, the pure 100% Jew, I am learning the Torah. That is not the proper attitude. That is not the proper attitude. I mean, it's a good point. You got a good point. Learning the Torah is really makes you special, but you got the wrong attitude. The Torah is supposed to make you humble. The Torah is supposed to make you small. The Torah is supposed to make you a servant of God. It's bringing God into the world, make you a vessel for God's blessing, to fix the world up. Without that, if you don't have this bitterness when you're learning the Torah, bitterness that the world is not the way it's supposed to be, and that by means of my learning the Torah, I am improving the world, then the Torah remains below. Okay, and therefore, therefore you have to have a special time for tears. And the Rebbe said that it's also at Tikkun Chatzos, there's a prayer which is called the midnight prayer. Midnight prayer. It's written in some of the Siddurim. Okay, so shortly, what were we saying? The Torah is the means by which you can fix up the world. But you have to have in your mind that the world desperately needs to be fixed up. The world is terrible. And it's true the Torah is also a sanctuary, right? The Torah is a place you can go to get away from the world and to be separate from the world. That is definitely true, right? And that's a good thing about the Torah also. But it can be very misleading. It can be very misleading, and it can be very, you want to call it deceiving. Oh, that's a good word. Deceiving. You can think that the purpose of the Torah is to get away from the world. It's not. The purpose of the Torah is to bring blessing into the world. The only way you can do that is by being away from the world, like a doctor. A doctor, he's different from everybody else. He knows medicine. Let's say he's got a higher IQ than everyone else. He wants the doctor, but the reason that he's there is in order to cure people. A teacher, a professor, he knows more than everybody else. He's on a higher level, but the reason he's supposed to be there, ideally, is to teach other people, to bring it down, to improve the world. The same thing, the Torah. The Torah is God's medicine. The Torah is God's the textbook to fix up the world. But it's more than that, just that. It's more like medicine than a textbook. But it's also both. It's a textbook because you have to learn it. But it's medicine because it automatically brings health into the world. Hine, behold, Elder says similarly also what King David said, Dimati Lechem, you're looking, it's in Psalm 42, right here. Let's see. Let's have a look over here in Psalm 42. What does it say in Psalm 42? Psalm 42. By the way, reading Psalms, by the way, is an amazing thing. You should learn the Psalm 42. It says, Lam Natziach Maskil Livnei Korach. Oh, this is the song from Chabad made a song about this also. Ka'ayol taroi galapike mayim kenavshi taroi lecho eloki. Sama nafshi lelokim lekel chai. Mosaya voy ve'ero epenei elokim. Mosaya voy ve'ero epenei elokim. Like a deer that longs for water. A deer runs and runs and runs, gets all tired and thirsty. It longs for water. Also, my soul longs for you, God. My soul is thirsty for God, the living God. When will I come and see the face of God? That's what King David is saying. And then the next sentence is, and bread was my tears were my bread day and night when people said to me all day, where is your God? Where is your God? That's the sentence. Psalm number 42. There it is. Psalm number 42. So that's what it means. My tears were bread. How it is by means of bitterness. Only by means of this can you draw down this level of ahava rabbah, big love of Aaron. Now, what did we say before? Abraham, his main thing was love. Aaron's main thing was love. Abraham's thing was how much God loves the world. He creates the world. And you can look at the world, you can see God's love in every flower and every breeze and every star and every breath, everything. But Abraham got it from the world. Aaron's thing was he's getting love directly from God. What does it mean directly from God? That Aaron was bitter. And he said, nothing in the world can compare in any way to God. And as long as I'm learning God from the world, it's always going to be missing something. It's always going to be missing the true revelation of God. That's Aaron. That's called big love. Love that doesn't depend on anything. That's the essential love of God to the Jews. And eventually that love will spread to the whole world. The whole world will see. That's Aaron. Aaron wanted that God should be revealed in the world. In other words, everyone would look and see and feel constantly that they are being created from God's love. And that everything is being created from God's love. And that God wants us to be dynamic and work in the world. And that everything we do in the world is a gift from God. And that's what Aaron wanted. Right? So there'll be a world without any depression and no aggression and no confusion and no frustrations and no lust. It'll be a healthy world, no addictions. That's what Aaron wants. So as long as it's not that way, you should feel bitter that God is not revealed here. Only by means of this bitterness will you come to the true love of God, the true, what's called big love of Aaron. Liot ayin ba'ayin, that we should see God eye to eye. Hine calls all this is only hakdama, is only a priest, is a preface. Levair, to explain, will haskil, and to understand mamish inyan hadlakas and neros b'shemen. Why the oil, the lamp in the holy temple, the menorah was lit with oil. Ki kamosh Hashem, just like oil. Kotatim tchila katit. First of all, you have to crush the olives. Katit lemaor. You have to crush the olives for the illuminator. Bagam asui, and it was also made. One minute. Next page. Turn the page. Here we go. Mizaitim. It was also made from olives. Vazaitim, and olives are bitter. Remember, I told you yesterday the story about the olive tree in my front yard. They're bitter. Kach also hine hadlakat b'hamshachas ava, in order to draw down this love, karish fe'esh, like a flaming fire. Shalahevet, which comes from Ria, from seeing God. Liot chafetz, that all you want is gilei lukusi, you want God to be revealed here in the world. It's by means of shemen. You have to have oil that was crushed from olives. You have to crush yourself. Now, this is what the Maimonides says, that when Moshiach comes, he's going to eradicate all the other religions. And the reason is because all of the other religions you're thinking about yourself. All the other religions, I'm going to go to heaven. I don't want to go to hell. I want to go to heaven. I don't want to be, to lose out. I want to win. I. Everything is I. Right? I. If you don't do it, you're going to be cursed. If you do it, you're going to be blessed. Heaven, and hell, and go rewards and things like that. Mashiach, when Mashiach is revealed, so he's going to show everybody tremendous love, but there's a big problem. And the problem is capital I. The reason right now we don't feel God's love is because we're thinking about ourselves all the time. In other words, all these other religions, as nice as they are, because they're talking about God and spiritual things, and they get you out of your own mundane physicalness. So it enlivens your vistas a little bit. But the fact of the matter is that that's one of the big things that's preventing Moshiach and God from revealing himself, because all the religions in the world are egotistical. It tells you how to think about yourself, and sometimes even more than these people who are atheists. They got a good point in a way. They got a good point, and the point is that if you're an atheist, so you're not depending on God to take care of all your problems. You do things yourself. You're active yourself, right? You have to do it yourself. You have to think yourself. You don't let others think for you. Or you just block out all other thoughts because I believe in the Lord and that's it. So you have to, okay, so by doing yourself is a good thing because you're connected to the world. You give to the world. You're giving to the world, ideally. And so you're giving to the world. So a person who's always religious, for instance, there was the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages was when the church was ruling, right? The church was ruling. So they didn't let anything, no science that was against it. They didn't want to hear any ideas, no music, no nothing. Right? They had no logic. It's just forbidden. Everything is forbidden, which is not the case if you're open. If you're open, so that means that there's things that are forbidden, but you're willing to explain why they're forbidden. Right? You explain why they're forbidden. What's the thing they're good. So the idea is that Judaism is supposed to be that you don't think about yourself. You think about fixing up the world on God's terms. In order to not think about yourself, you have to crush. You have to crush yourself. You have to try to look at the world from the other guy's point of view, and eventually from God's point of view. By looking at the world from other people's point of view, so then you can explain to them why maybe they're wrong, maybe you're wrong. But the idea is that you crush your ego. It's not I am right. You can't contradict me. You can't contradict me. Even in Judaism, it's very interesting. In Judaism, there's the death penalty. Judaism is a thing called the death penalty. Right? If you go against the Torah, there's a death penalty. How is the death penalty applied? So there has to be two witnesses that warn the person and tell him, do you realize what you're doing? That if you do this, it's a death penalty. And the person has to answer immediately afterwards, I know, and that's why I'm doing it. Yes, if he says, what are you talking about? There's no death penalty, then he's not killed. It's almost impossible to apply the death penalty in Judaism. In other words, you have to look at the world from the other person's point of view. Do you realize that this is what's going on in your mind? Do you realize that you're doing a sin? The guy says, what are you talking about? It's no sin. Well, I'm telling you that it is. Well, I'm telling you that it's not. A person like that, you don't kill. Can't be killed. You have to stop the person. You have to maybe imprison him. You have to stop him, but you can't apply the death penalty. Why? Because a person, you have to look at the world. You have to minimize yourself. You have to try to look at the world from God's point of view, not from your point of view. It says that's the idea of oil. You have to crush yourself. You have to be humble. To be humble. That's why it says that Moses was the most humble person in the world. Like it says, my soul is like dirt to everyone. By means of hitbonanut. You have to think a second. What's really going on? How the soul is so low. I'm going to tell a story about this today. That's going to be my story. I won't tell it now because I remember the story. Okay, about the previous Rebbe going up I saw this yesterday that I told the story like 4 years ago, and I printed it out. I sent it out, so I don't know if you got it or not. But in any case, here he goes. Listen, I'll tell you the story afterwards. Zman. So you have to think, how do you come to this bitterness? How do you come to humility? How it is that place and time, they are very far away from God. But by means of this, a person becomes bitter. That you think that I'm okay. The Inyan means like this. The Hine Kasiv, it says, that's why I said before that it says that all the Hasidic Chabad say that the Hasidic Chabad are all going to go to hell. Why? Because no matter what you do, it's never going to be enough. It's never going to be what's really according to your potential and your ability, what God expects from you. How do you know what God expects from you? That's what the Rebbe expects from us. The Rebbe tells us, teach like Moses. Moses expected things from the Jewish people, and everybody said, "Who are you to tell us what to do?" Right? Korach, that was the big thing of Korach. We'll learn in 2 weeks. So the Rebbe tells us what is expected from us, and we sort of, we try as much as we can. We can't. That's the idea of humility. Humility means no matter how much I try, it's never going to be enough. All the problems in the world are because of me. I'm not simply not doing what I'm supposed to do. It becomes bitter. That does not stop you from being happy. You have to be happy with what you've got. You have to, but never satisfied. Never satisfied with what you've got. Hainu dehine kasi. The temporary power shortage. Are we still on? Yes. Okay. It's like the Zine Kasiv, it is written, Keshem Anatov al Rosh, Yored al Zakan. Zakan Aron. This is in Psalms.
Okay, he's back.
Sorry, it was a power shortage. Power shortage. I have this battery that keeps things going. I hope. All right. Are we going? We're on? Yes.
Power's back on, or you're on the battery?
Are you on? No, I don't know. Doesn't make any difference as long as it's on.
Yeah.
I think we're on. Okay.
Yeah, it's on. Yeah.
All right. We'll see what the results of this was. Okay, let's go. What happened? Okay. A person has to think about how far away his soul is from God. It's like this. Kasiv, it says, Kashem Anatov al Rosh, like we said in Psalm 133, one of the Shir Hamalot, right in the end of the Shir Hamalot. It says, like the good oil on the head that comes down on the beard of Aaron, that it came on his garments. What is this good oil? Good oil that poured on the head and came on the beard of Aaron, and it flowed down on his garments. What does it mean? The beard of Aaron this is now explaining us how to be humble. This is the beard of Aaron. The beard of Aaron, this is what's called Dikna to Kahana Rabbah. This is called the beard of the high priest. And this beard is what's called the 13 attributes of mercy. Yud Gimel Tikune Dikna, 13 tufts of the beard. Whatever it's fixing. That's the 13 attributes of mercy. That's the 13 attributes to the Torah, and it corresponds to the 13 principles that the Torah can be learned by. Right? In the beginning of our prayers, we say it all the time. God gave the Torah purposely in a way it couldn't be understood face value, and He gave it to the rabbis to be learned, and they learn it according to 13 principles. Kol v'chomer, Gezei Reshava. Okay, those are the hairs. So the oil is good. The good oil is poured on the head, comes down to the beard, and comes on the garments. So he says the beard, that is God's mercy. 13 attributes of God's mercy. And that also corresponds to the 13 the principles by which the Torah is learned. Laws are derived. And these hairs, these are the laws of the Torah. The beard in general is mercy, and it's also the Torah because it's God's mercy. But the individual hairs of the beard, these are the laws of the Torah. They are called Ketzavatov Teltalim in the Song of Songs. They're called his hairs are curled. She'em hamshachas gilei lukuta. These are revealed godliness from above to below, and many divisions without any end. Yesh al zeh bechinas shemen atov. And on all of these laws of the Torah, there is the good oil. What's the good oil? The good oil is this upper wisdom of God, this upper life force of God, which is drawn to them. 1 second. Let's see if this is worth learning. 1 minute. It's bit complicated. Here it goes. No. Excuse me 1 second. I want to see where the end of this parenthesis. Oh, here it is. No. Excuse me 1 minute. Here we go. All right, good. We'll learn this then. Let's learn this. Here we go. Ready? So it says, and this is a footnote by the third Rebbe of Chabad. And we can say that these hairs, these are Zeranpin, the emotions of God, and these are the long wavy hairs that are black. It says black hairs like a orev, like a crow. And the shemen, that's what the laws are. So the laws are very strict, like a crow, very cruel, right? Black, very dark. But the oil that's on them, that's God's wisdom. That's the Chachma of Atzilus. So the laws of the Torah are very strict, right? They're very limiting. But the wisdom that comes through them, the Torah, that's very enlivening. And it's something, let's say, like a human body. A human body is very, very limited. The heart has to be exactly the right place. There's the blood vessels and the veins and the arteries and the nerves. Everything has to be exactly right. If one of them is moved a little bit, then it could just upset the whole thing. A person, God forbid, stop living. So the body, therefore, is very, very, unpleasant. It's very, on the other hand, through the body comes life. Through the body is life. So all these little details, as strict and as discouraging as they might be, right? If a person starts thinking, maybe one of my, how many blood vessels I have? What if one of them busts? That's really, what about all my nerves? What about all my veins? My eyes? If a person can start thinking about all these things, right, you can go. I read somewhere where it said that your blood travels like, I don't know if this is in life, but it says a person breathes like my numbers are not accurate. Okay, a person breathes like 5,000 times a day, and your blood travels like 2,000 miles a day. It says, I'm tired. I'm tired. If you think about what's going on, it just wears you out. So it says, that's the laws of the Torah. The laws of the Torah are very strict. They're very seemingly not alive. But through the laws, just like through the human body, comes life. Through these laws comes the oil. And that oil, that's God's wisdom, the wisdom of Atzilut. Also, we can say that the intention also means that the hairs of the 13 attributes of God's mercy, of what's called Erech Anpin, of God's mercy, like it says, that the beard is the beard of Aaron. This is mentioned twice, beard. The beard is the beard of Aaron. Why does it mention twice? Because the hairs have the outside, but they also have a hole inside of them, but there's a word for it. I can't remember. Anyway, hairs have a tube inside of each hair, inside, Shabon Nimshach, that it's enclosed.
A hair follicle.
Follicle. Oh, there we go. There's a life comes from the brain. The hairs themselves, they come from the intellect from the brain. Therefore, you can cut the hairs and you don't feel it. And doesn't hurt the brain at all, because this is like leftover. So now we can understand the same thing in spiritually. These hairs, these are the commandments. It's something like the Rebbe is saying, like a mashal. A mashal shabov al yudei masigim a nimshal. Asher hamashal zeu bechinas asara atzmo. And the nimshal, which is in it, this is like the follicle that comes in. Okay, what's a mashal and what's a nimshal, right? One famous one was Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein explained that Walt Disney made a movie about the theory of relativity. Yeah, it was shown in schools. I mean, the theory of relativity. And what was it? Albert Einstein was a big genius, but he also had the ability to explain his ideas in the most simple terms. And so, but he did it and with a whole mushal. He had a mushal. A person is standing on a train station, and then the train is moving, but you can't see it. It feels like he's moving. You don't know who's moving. Anyway, it brought a whole example. So by this example that he brought, right, that you're sitting in a train and there's a train right next to you, and you can't see anything else, and one of them starts moving. You don't know if you're the one that's moving forward or the train next to you is moving backward. You don't know what. So that's relativity. Everything is relative to everything else. And then he came and explained this whole thing. Okay, so we have the mashal is the example. The mashal is the thing that you can understand. The mashal, you have a train, you sit in a train, you've been in a train, you know what a train is. What about the theory of relativity? I have no idea what it is. So from the mashal, which is the train, you can understand the nimshal, which is the theory of relativity. Here the Rebbe is saying that the Torah is the mashal for God. The Torah, these are the laws. And the laws of the Torah, they are just the mashal. They're just the external. But if you feel the life inside, what the Torah is trying to teach us, that there's a commander that's commanding these laws. And so that's the oil that comes down on the head. So that's what it says, the beard. They came down on the beard of Aaron. The beard, the first one is talking about external, and the inside, that's the second time it says the beard. Okay, so by means of this, we can also understand what the Torah is. The Torah is like the hairs, because the Torah is called Mashal HaKadmoni. The Torah is called the primordial example. The Torah is like a mashal and a garment to Kadmona Shel Olam, to the creator of the world. They just like by means of a mashal, by the example, you can understand the point which you're trying to learn. Also the same thing by means of the Torah. By the Torah, you can understand, you can feel a little bit that which is incomprehensible, the infinite light of God, which is the Kadmona Shel Olam. Now, just in a simple way. Only in Judaism, that's the big problem, the big problem with conservative and reform Judaism, right? Is that they think that you can use your own mind to understand this, the rabbi said, this I don't like. This I don't like that the rabbis did. This not my, this is okay. This I'll do, right? So what are you doing? You're putting your mind in the place of God's mind. You're trying to say that the rabbis that gave the Torah, that was their mind. They have their opinion. I have my opinion. I'm also a rabbi. It's not so. The rabbis that are mentioned in the Talmud were totally surrendered to God. They were totally bitter, like we said before, humility like Moses. And therefore, the wisdom of God could come through them, just like life comes through a hair. But if you ignore that life, then all you have is the hairs. All you have is the outside. And that you can cut off. There's no problem with it. What's the big problem? That's the idea that the laws of the Torah, they are like hairs themselves, which means to say that they are called the example of what God is. But there is on them or in them this the oil, which the oil is the wisdom of God, their pure godliness, mamish. Maybe it is kadmon shalom. So this is an aspect of God that the other religions don't have. That God cares about the world. That God gave the Torah and He cares about every detail of the world. That the world should be perfected, not to take us into heaven. Hainu chachma da'ak. This is called chachma of the primordial man. And then we can say the wisdom of the chachma of atik, which is a little lower level, some yomen. And a shenimshach, that is drawn down and drawn into them. And this is the idea of the hairs themselves. And the oil which goes into them, this is the hairs are called the 13 attributes of mercy, of Erech Anpin. And they are the external. But the inside of them is pure godliness. That's the panimis. That comes from the inside of what's called the crown. That's called atik yomin. But it's impossible to draw down the essence of God unless you have the outside, right? You can't, like the example of this, you can't understand the grade school child. You can't understand it's a very low example, but it's an example. You can't understand the theory of relativity unless you understand this example about the two trains. So the same thing, you can't grasp the uniqueness and the oneness of God unless you have the commandments. The commandments themselves have no sign of godliness in them at all, but in them they do. In fact, they do come from God. In fact, they're coming from God right now. And that's the idea of the oil, which is drawn down from the olives. The olives are bitter because the olives, they grow up from the ground. And that's the idea of the 13 attributes of mercy. They're like hairs. They're like the beard. It grows like grass grows. Therefore, olives also are bitter because that's just the outside of the picture. Like the hairs themselves, they're called dinim. They're very strict. It says, like we said before, like a crow. And the laws themselves are very careful. God says, you must do this, you must not do this. Also, the laws of the Torah, they're very, very strict. Even though that, okay, there's also other types of hairs, which it says that in the vision of Daniel, that it says his hairs were like white snow, right? That's a different level. But in order to draw down this level, it's only by means of us. We have to taste the bitterness of the darkness of the exile that we're in the world. You learn the Torah, you don't feel God. That should make you feel bitter. What do we do? We have to understand that don't think that means that there is no God in the Torah. It means that there is, but we just have to learn the Torah. You have to work very difficult to learn the Torah sometimes. It's a source of all the worlds is drawn down, all these, and that again is these other branches of Judaism. They want it to be easy. I don't understand that. That's too hard. That doesn't make any sense. I want Judaism to be for me. I'm not for Judaism, right? Judaism is not easy. It has to be bitter. But the bitterness, that brings the true sweetness. Azai, then, by means of this, afterwards, you can reveal the inside, which is the oil, the good oil, which is the wisdom, and then that's Shalamayla, which is above the level of just plant. You see, the love, this is the big love of God. So it comes by means of bitterness. And this bitterness means from understanding that we are very far away from the Creator, and that through the Torah you can be very close. And even though we're far from the Creator is not far from us. The Creator is infinitely close to us. And that's what should make us bitter. As we'll learn more, God willing, that's the whole idea of the bitterness of the olives. When they're crushed, there comes out the pureness of oil, and that's the good oil that comes running down through the Torah, as we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Now, let us go to the Yom Yom. 1 second. 1 minute. What happened over here? Oh, here we go.
Yom, ready?
1 minute.